Hi, Victoria. I'm glad you're here. I went ahead and opened the waiting room. We won't start for another half an hour. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Hey guys, welcome. We're going to start in 1 minute. Just wanted to say thank you for coming. There's four of us now, and we'll hopefully have about four times this in a minute. Thanks for being here. If you look in the chat, you will see the agenda, and feel free to open that. I'm going to share it in just a moment. I hope you guys can all hear me and see me just fine. Welcome aboard. It is almost 5. We'll start in just a minute. I wanted to say hi to you and thank you for coming. Your teachers must be very proud of you. You are taking time out of your busy days to prepare for the AP exam. So, bravo. Thank you. Good job. If you are just joining us in the chat, please type in your name, your state, and its political color, if you know what that means. Oh my goodness, we have a Nevadan, a North Carolinian. Oh my goodness, oh my gracious. If you haven't yet, go to the chat and type in your first name, your state, and if you know the color, the political color of your state, please type it in. It's 5 o'clock. I'm going to get started. I'm going to chime the Liberty Bell. And there it is. Let's begin. If you will look over my shoulder, you will see a friend of ours. I don't know if anyone can identify that. If you think you know who that is, you're welcome to put the name of the person in the chat, or you don't have to. We have someone from Maryland, and Maryland's a blue state. Although you have a red governor, but generally a very blue Democratic state. We have a North Carolinian here, a purple state. That means it's a little bit red, it's a little bit blue, it's somewhere in the middle. And we have a Nevadan, also a purple state. So thanks for joining us. I think others will join us as we go, but I'm going to just go ahead and start. You guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here from all across the country. And you must want to do well on the AP exam. And that's what I'm here to do to help you. So let us begin. Without further ado, welcome to the AP exam webinar for students. I am Jonathan Milner. I am an AP GoPo teacher. I am an AP College Board consultant. That means I'm one of the people that reads the exams. And no, don't write a note on your exam, hello, Jonathan, because I won't be able to see your name. I will only have your number. So, I won't be able to help you out there, but I do want you to do well on the AP exam. And I'm glad you've come to this meeting. And I hope you leave this meeting with lots of ideas, help, content, skills, all those things so that you can get the score of your dreams. For many of you, that may be a 5. For others of you, it may be a 4 or even a 3, and that's okay. All of you signed up to be here, and I asked you a couple of questions. One of the questions was, how are you feeling about the course? How are you feeling about the exam? Nobody that signed up said, I think I'm going to get a 5. And that makes sense. You wouldn't be here if you knew you were going to get a 5. Nobody who signed up said, I'm going to get a 1. And that makes sense too, because I don't believe you'd be here if you thought you were going to get a 1. You guys are somewhere in the middle. Most of you in the 3 range. And my promise to you guys is, if you come to this session, which you just did, if you stay with us, and if you study 10 minutes every night, your score is going to go up 1 point. So if you thought you were going to get a 3, you're going to get a 4. If you thought you were going to get a 4, you're going to get a 5. If you thought you were going to get a 5, you'll get a 5. So thank you for being here. We're going to do a lot of things to try to figure out this exam. I'm going to give you some hacks, some tips, some things like that, some GoPo pro tips so that you can do your best on the exam. If you're just getting here, we have written our name in the chat, we've written our state in the chat, and we've said whether our state is red, blue, or purple. And so you also may have noticed in the chat, I've put the agenda, and you're welcome to click on that and follow along, or you can just look on the screen. I'm going to share today's agenda with you, and we're just going to basically go through it as we go through our hour here. So I hope everybody can see the agenda. I hope everybody can see the chat. And it looks like we've just had another person join us. I have pinned the chat. I'm sorry, I pinned the agenda in the chat. It is up at the tippy top. I'm going to put it in again, just in case you didn't get it. It may be that that went in there before you joined. And so here we go. And there's the agenda. And you should be able to follow along with that. I'm going to go over tons of stuff today. You'll remember some of it. You'll forget some of it. Everything we talk about is going to be in the agenda. And so after today, you're welcome to go back on the agenda and look over the things that we discussed today and talked about. All right. So what I want to do is start with the exam. Of course, the exam's in 27 days, believe it or not. That's not long. May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and it looks like you guys are all getting on the chat and all getting into the exam agenda. Very good, very good. I'm going to click on some of the agenda items and you're welcome to follow this at home. You're welcome to just sit back and watch on the screen. This is a basic AP exam preview. Now, I know some of you know what's on the exam. Some of you have said you aren't really clear. So I'm going to go over all of this stuff and I'll try to be quick about it. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you. It's up to you. There's two parts of the AP exam. Both parts are on May the 5th at noon, wherever you are, at noon your time. The first section is part one, the multiple choice. Now, this is 55 questions, 80 minutes, and it's half of the exam score. In other words, it's really important. You will have almost a minute and a half per question. So the first pro tip I'm going to give you guys is slow down. Don't rush. You're going to have plenty of time. And what I've found is that most students are twiddling their fingers after they have finished their work before the time is up. So, first tip, slow down. Don't go too fast. There's all kinds of different questions that are going to be on the multiple choice portion of the exam. Quantitative analysis. And all that means is tables, charts, line graphs, maps, etc. They're visuals. Each visual will have two questions about it. Okay. Each question is A, B, C, or D. There are four possible answers to each question. There will be two questions about each of these five quantitative analysis questions or visuals. That means there's going to be 10 out of 55 questions are just visuals. In other words, it's time to study some visuals. We'll practice later on in our session today. Also, your textbook probably has lots of visuals that you can practice with. Also, my website, which we're going to look at later, has lots of practice visual questions that you can go over. All right. There's also going to be two qualitative analysis questions. And all that means is you're going to get a text, a piece of writing. Uh-oh, this is really hard. I'm not going to lie to you. This is probably the hardest part of the exam. But please do your due diligence, read through the entire text, and then answer the questions. I'll go over some pro tips on how to find the answer, even if you don't know the answer. But you're going to have two text-based questions. You get a little excerpt from maybe a Federalist paper, maybe a writing about politics, and you'll get 1, 2, 3 questions about the first text snippet, and then you'll get 4 questions about the next text snippet. In other words, 7 questions total about these two pieces of text that you will have to read and comprehend. In other words, make sure you practice reading comprehension. And I'll give you some more tips on that later on. In part one, the multiple choice, there also are some visual analysis questions. These are also political cartoons, infographics, things like that. And there will be 3 of these with multiple questions about it. In other words, lots of visuals on the exam. In other words, there will be 1 political cartoon on your exam, and you will have to answer 2 questions about it. Basically, what is it? What does it mean? And a connection between it and what you know about GoPo. If you guys have questions, if you're confused, if you have anything, just raise your hand or put your question in the chat. Finally, there's going to be a comparison table question where you'll get 2 things and you'll have to make some comparisons between them. I will go over this in about 5 minutes, and there are 5 of these table questions. And ladies, gentlemen, folks, you're going to get a free point on each of these if you stay with us during our webinar today. I'll give you a key to unlock these 5 comparison table questions. And then finally, there'll be just some general questions about terms, concepts, and vocabulary. Make sure you know your GoPo vocabulary. My website has a beautiful glossary on it where we have definitions for every one of the terms you need to know. All right, that's the first part of the exam. You'll take that, you'll have 80 minutes, you'll get a break, and you'll have 10 minutes. Hopefully your teacher will give you Scooby snacks or some kind of break, and then you will take the free response. 4 questions, 1 hour and 40 minutes, or 100 minutes. That is 50% of the exam score. Oh my goodness, oh my gracious. The FRQ, it sounds hard, but there's lots of hacks and tips that I'm going to give you today that are going to help you get through it. We have concept application question that is a current event. We have a quantitative analysis question that is a visual. We have a SCOTUS comparison question, which is comparing 2 SCOTUS cases, one that's in your brain, one that they will give you on the exam, and an argument essay. Oh my goodness, these are all equal in value, but not equal in time. You have 20 minutes for the first 3 and 40 minutes for the last one. You can move at any pace you want, but the proctor will prompt you to move ahead after the 20 minutes on each FRQ. Okay, those are the 2 parts of the exam. That's probably not news to you. And this is how it's scored. These are the units that are covered. I'm sure you know all of this. One thing to note, of all of the units covered on the exam, Unit 2 is covered the most. It is almost 33% of the multiple choice questions. A third of the multiple choice questions will be about the branches of government. Wow, that is a lot. And so if you focus on one area of content for the rest of the year, I would strongly recommend that that area be Unit 2. That means legislative, executive, judicial branch, and the bureaucracy. All right. This is just another way of looking at that. This is all here for you. You can come back to this. This just walks you through the units and the different topics in the units, the different documents that we read at each unit, and the different SCOTUS cases that correspond to each unit. Your teacher may have gone through this in a different pace, a different order, or even with different configuration of documents in SCOTUS cases. Fear not. As long as they cover the 14 cases and the 9 documents, you're going to be fine. If you're sitting here and you're like, what documents? What SCOTUS cases? You're not going to be fine. So put your name in the chat and I will try to help you and get you where you need to go. All right. But I know that, of course, you guys are pretty ready, or else you wouldn't even be here. Your teacher wouldn't have told you about this. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go back to our agenda. You have a copy of this. I have a copy of this. And again, here's my promise. If you study about 15 minutes every day between now and the exam, your score will go up a whole point on a scale of 1 to 5. All right, let's do the comparison table challenge. Let me walk you through this. This is really, really, really important. It maybe seems a little confusing, but I believe that if you follow these very simple rules, you're going to do very well on these 5 different questions that will be on the AP exam. Now, I'm going to walk you through this. This is available on my website. It's the comparison table challenge, and it looks like this. There are 7 steps that you will go through for success on a comparison table question. There will be 5 comparison table questions on the exam. If you go through these simple steps and you follow them, I guarantee you will get every one of those comparison table questions right. That means you'll get 5 out of 55 points automatic. I think this is a very good 5 free points to hear. Okay, these are the 7 steps. I want you to look at these steps, and I'm going to show you a question. Hopefully, you've seen one of these questions before. It's called a comparison table. In a comparison table question, you'll be asked to compare 2 things. It could be Democrats and Republicans. It could be executive branch, legislative branch. It could be a Supreme Court case and another Supreme Court case. It could be 2 foundational documents. There will be 5 tables of comparisons. On this table of comparisons, we have 2 Supreme Court cases. McCulloch versus Maryland, 1819, and U.S. v. Lopez, 1995. All right. Now, the first step, and if you're looking at the screen, you can see this, is to start with the column you know the best. In this case, start with the case you know the best. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm betting for most of you, you know McCulloch versus Maryland better than you know U.S. v. Lopez. And that's where about 85% of all students start. So we're going to start with McCulloch versus Maryland, okay? And what we're going to do is pretty simple. We're going to go down the McCulloch versus Maryland column, and we're going to ask this: is Part A, Question A, true about McCulloch versus Maryland? Did McCulloch versus Maryland declare an act of Congress unconstitutional? The answer is no, it did not. In fact, it basically said an act of Congress was constitutional. Now, here's the thing. If you mark off one side of the table, you mark off the other side, whether it's right or wrong. So I've put a line through Part A on both sides. We've already eliminated a whole row just by knowing one thing about McCulloch versus Maryland. Let's go to Part B. Part B. McCulloch versus Maryland, 1819. Did it rule that Congress had implied powers? Now, take a second, and nobody has to say, but if you want to either unmute or go to the chat, you can type in the chat yes or no, true or false. Did McCulloch versus Maryland decide that Congress had implied powers? Let's see what we've got. I'm opening up the chat, and we have a student. Victoria says, yes, it did. And Victoria, I agree with you. And the College Board agrees with you. And Shraddha agrees with you. We're all in agreement. And the fact is that, yeah, the McCulloch versus Maryland decided that Congress had implied powers. In fact, the power had to do with the national bank. There's nothing in the Constitution that says Congress can start a national bank, but Congress wanted to start a national bank. They felt like they needed it. They felt like it was necessary. They felt like it was even proper. Can anyone type in the chat what clause in Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to do something that's not explicitly enumerated in the Constitution? I'm going to just sit here a second. I'll ring the Liberty Bell, and we'll see if somebody can tell me. Aha! Yes, that is exactly right. Two of you said necessary and proper clause. That is right. Because that is correct, we're going to leave it B. Now we're going to move down to part C. Did McCulloch versus Maryland lead to an increase in the power of the national government? I would say it definitely did, because it said the national government could use the necessary and proper clause to do things that weren't explicitly in the Constitution in Article 1, Section 8. Things like make a national bank, things like an air force, things like a space force, things that the Congress didn't, the framers didn't think to put in the Constitution. As long as they were necessary and proper, as long as they were reasonable, then Congress could do them. Who decides if Congress can do them? The Supreme Court. All right, so we're going to leave Part C alone for now, and we're going to go down to Part D. Did McCulloch versus Maryland decide that a state had the power to tax a national bank? By the way, a couple of you are from the state that wanted to tax the national bank. Anybody know what state that is? Maryland is right. Maryland wanted to tax the national bank, and the Supreme Court said, nope, Maryland can't do that. The power to tax is the power to destroy. And so we're going to put an X next to declared that a state had the power to tax the national bank. Now, we have two possible answers left. And now we're going to move over to the U.S. v. Lopez side, the column that we didn't start with. We're going to work our way down. We've already ruled out row A, and we've already ruled out row B. So now all we have to do is choose between B or C. Again, we're going to go back to true or false. U.S. v. Lopez, true or false? Did U.S. v. Lopez rule that state laws are supreme to national laws? Now think about that a second. What would that even mean if state laws were supreme to national laws? Would that mean that if Vermont wanted to pass a law legalizing marijuana, that it would be legal in the whole country? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to decide that Part B, row B in U.S. v. Lopez is not true. And thus, I'm going to mark it out. And that means that the answer is C. Let's double check the answer. We said that McCulloch versus Maryland led to an increase in power for the national government, and U.S. v. Lopez established limits to Congress's power under the Commerce Clause. Ladies and gentlemen, if you use these 7 steps, you can solve every comparison table question. It takes some time. It's a little bit hard, but you can do it. Let's review the steps again. Number 1, look at the terms at the top. Start with the column that you know best. In our case, that was McCulloch. Number 2, work down vertically. The column you know best, row versus by row. If it false, strike it out. If it's false on one side, it's false on the other side, even if it's true. So if you mark out one side, one column, you mark out the other column. Step 5, keep going. Work all your way down through the questions. If it's true, it stays. If it's false, it gets crossed out. Switch to the other column and repeat. And probably on almost every question, you're only going to have really 2 to choose from to find the right answer. I hope that this method helps. This method is here. You can look at it. You can review it. And if you want, you can practice it. And if you go to our AP Exam Prep and you look at the comparison table challenge, all you have to do is type in your nickname. My nickname is Nick. And then you can go through these. Now let's see if we can do this one best. Click a column that we know best to choose first. I'm going to start with Congress, okay? I think I know that best. A, do members of Congress have to be born in their state? No. I'm going to mark that out. Do members of Congress have to be free of criminal records? No. I'm going to mark that out. Are members elected for 2 or 6-year terms? In the House, in the Senate, 6. So I'm going to leave it. Members cannot be related to the president. No. And I'm going to mark that out. So we've already found the answer with a very simple practice. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got it. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I will let you go through this on your own in your own time, but you'll see the kinds of questions we have about the POTUS, the President of the United States, the COTUS, the Congress of the United States. And it's pretty simple. You choose the side you know best, you work your way down, you mark out things that are false, you mark them out on both sides if one side is false, and then you find the answer. That was pretty fast, but I hope that helped you. And if you follow those rules, you get 5 free points on the AP exam. If you want to make some new friends tomorrow in class, feel free to share these pro tips with your pro friends, and hopefully it will help them on the exam. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on along. And that was our comparison table challenge. I will show you, if you haven't been there, this is my website, Social Studies Lab. And on the website, there's a whole AP exam prep section just for you guys. And there's lots of practice things you can do on here. There's a Unit 4 interactive review. There's flashcards for every vocab term in GoPo. And there's a whole SCOTUS section. And you can click on any one of these and just go through the flashcards, go through the SCOTUS. And this allows you to do flashcards, matching, gives you progress, lets you reflect on the topic. So presidency, for example, we're going to have Federalist number 70. And then, do you know what that's about? If you do, let them know that you know it. If you need a hint, you can ask for it. This is about the executive branch, Federalist number 7. And there's the definition. And if you know it, let us know that you know it and you get points. If you don't know it, you can tell us and you won't. All right. This is the glossary. You can choose your deck from any of these different parts of the College Board, content, elections, judiciary, whatever it is. There's a matching game as well. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do that will help you prepare for the AP exam. All right. And if you want to see more of the AP prep, those were some of my favorite AP prep games and reviews, but there's a whole ton of stuff you can get right down here. All right. And they all feature my beagle, the Go Pup, Roger. There he is. And these are games, reviews, timelines, workshops, all kinds of things you can do to get ready for the exam. All right, let's do this. Let's talk about the glossary. On my website is a glossary, and I mentioned this before. Some of you may have been to it, some of you may have not. This is on the website, and it's got all of the terms that you need to know. If you want, all that material is covered in the $20, but it's not $20, it's $15 because there's a $5 discount for all of you. You can type in any one of the terms right here and look it up. And you can also go through our list of terms if you don't know what government shutdown means, or shadow docket, separation of powers, executive order. Just click on that and you'll get a definition. You'll get some questions. And you'll get a little advice of how to remember the term. Again, we've got tons of terms in our glossary. This is all available to you. It's on the website. It's free and it's easy. If you're studying and you're like, oh, I can't remember what a docket is, you click there and get it. If you're studying and you're like, wait, what was the Fourth Amendment about? Just click and there it is. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, That's the glossary. Does anybody have any questions about how the glossary works before we move on? I'm trying to cover a lot of ground. I'm going sort of fast. Thank you for being patient. If you have questions, put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer it. All right, let's go back to our webinar agenda. Again, there's links to all this stuff. The glossary is totally free. And let me make sure you know how to get there. Again, here's my website, socialstudieslab.org. And it's real simple. There's a bunch of free resources that all of you guys can use anytime you want. And they include a daily bell ringer, a visual. If you have a teacher that shows you these bell ringers, that's one. There's a free one every day, and then there's a free glossary, and you just click here to check it out. And then there's a bunch of free activities you can click on and download for free. But there's a glossary right there. And yeah, that stuff's all free. And so you can get any of that stuff, and there's the glossary again. There's the interactive flashcards. And then if you want, you can get the whole glossary in a Google Doc. Some of you probably like to just have something tangible right in front of you. And this has all the terms listed with links to the definition. It's got all the cases, all the different unit terms, and they're here. And then at the end of this, after we go through all the terms from unit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, there's also some practice multiple choice questions that you can go over. And this is an example of that. There's a quiz for each of the sections, a quiz on the amendments. There's a quiz on the amendments, and then there's the key at the end of it. So this is just a way you can sort of practice and see how well you did and what you know, that kind of thing. Okay. So that's the glossary. That's on our website, and you can get that by going to Social Studies Lab. All righty. You guys, thank you so much for being here. I've got a lot of other things I want to show you, but I want to take a second to make sure that we're on the same page. Do you guys have any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions that you have right now. There's a bunch of you guys here. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. If there's an area that you're like, oh my God, I am so confused about blah, 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 let me know. This would be a good time to chat away and put the question in the chat. While you're considering that, this is the agenda. And I'm going to go down here to constitutional amendments and clauses to know. There are 27 amendments to the Constitution. Only 27, and 10 of them happen like that. So since the Bill of Rights, we've only had 17 amendments to the Constitution. It's not an easy thing to do to amend the Constitution. You have to go to the Congress. Anybody know what portion of Congress has to approve of the amendment to send it to the next step? Here's a GoPro tip. When in doubt, guess 2/3, and you'll be right 2/3 of the time. After it goes to the Congress, if 2/3 of Congress approves of it, it goes to the states, and that, Victoria, is where the 3/4 comes in. 3/4 of the states have to approve of any amendment for it to become part of the Constitution. That means only 13 states are needed to stop any amendment, which is why we've only had 27. You should know them all, but of all the amendments to know, these are the best to know. First and foremost is the first. Of course, there are 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, and hopefully you know what they are. If you'd like, you can chat it up and put the different freedoms that were guaranteed. 55 words, 5 freedoms. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or abridging the freedom thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the people to assemble peaceably, or to petition the government for redress of grievances. Those are the 5 powers laid out in the First Amendment. I took a second with that because it's really important. The 14th Amendment, also really important. If you don't know these amendments, you can click here and it will take you to a definition of the amendment. 14th gives us the due process clause and it gives us the, anybody? Equal protection clause. 10th Amendment, 6th, 2nd, 5th, 4th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 17th. If you're looking at these and you're like, what? Take a minute, look them up. Make sure you know what they mean and what they say. Here are the amendments in all their glory, all the words of the amendments, all the way from the 1st down to the 17th. And then there's some clauses that you need to know on the GOPO. And FRQ number 3, the College Board is going to ask you to compare 2 Supreme Court cases. In that, they're going to want to know if you know what amendment or clause the case relates to. And these are the clauses that you're going to need to know on the GOPO. If you want the deets, just scroll on down. Commerce Clause, Due Process Clause, etc., etc. There they are. All the details about all the clauses and all the things you need to know. I made some Yelp reviews for a couple of these amendments, and if you'd like, you can take a look at them. And again, there's our AP Prep. If you click over there, you can test drive an online version of this. It's called the Constitutional Amendments and Clauses right here. And Roger will help you practice the different clauses and amendments with this challenge. There's a quiz, there's a challenge, there's the full gauntlet and flashcards. These are all things you can do to try to practice and learn these. Games are good, games are fun, and I've got lots of games for you on the AP Prep so that you can get ready and get points on the AP exam. And there's Roger. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are halfway home. It is 5:30. I am very grateful that you guys have joined me. Your teachers are going to be grateful because they all want you to do well on the exam. And just the fact that you're here is going to give you a real leg up on the exam. So again, thank you. Congratulations on being here. Let's do some more things. Let's practice some multiple choice pro tips. You can listen or you can follow along on the agenda. And I hope that you can see the agenda right here. And I hope you can also see me in here and hear me. There's going to be 55 multiple choice questions, each with 4 possible answers. Whatever you do, do not skip a single question. Answer them all. There is no penalty for guessing. In other words, answer them all. Now, here's a really weird tip, and it's true, but it's sort of weird. If you get to a question and you're like, I have no idea, eliminate any answers you know aren't true. On almost every single multiple choice question, there's going to be one answer that's definitely not true. And then there's going to be another answer that's a distractor, and it's like, nah, probably not true. And then there's probably going to be 2 possible answers, one that is right, the best answer, and one that is close. Whatever you do, answer every single question. Whatever you do, eliminate the wrong answers and narrow yourself to the right answer. If you absolutely have to guess, this is the weird thing, guess the longest answer. The answer with the most words between the 1 or 2, the 2 you're choosing between. If you have absolutely no idea, pick the one with the longest answer, the most words. Weird fact, true fact. Hopefully that will help you on 1 or 2 questions. Slow down is GOPO tip number 2. You got plenty of time, almost a minute and a half per question. You guys are going to do fine. You're going to have plenty of time. Be a turtle on the exam. Slow down. You move too fast. Number 3, all questions are created equal. So while I said slow down, don't slow down like 30 minutes on one question. If you've spent more than 5 minutes on any question, and of course, you're not going to have a timer right there with you, but if you feel like you're just spending way too much time, like 5 minutes, move on. Ring the Liberty Bell and move on to the next question. Make sure, number 4, that you carefully view all the questions and answers. Lots of people don't read the questions carefully. Lots of people don't read the answers carefully. And just being careful and slowing down can help you not make mistakes. Okay. Here's another good thing to know. About a fourth of the questions are going to be based on visual prompts, graphs, maps, charts, cartoons. So please, please, please get your visual skills sharpened before the AP exam. My website has a free visual question every single day on it, and you can use that question to help hone your skills. One way to think about it is with each of these visuals, you need to know 3 things. These are the 3 W's. Here's the first W. What does the visual say? What's it about? What's it mean? This is just a simple description. What is it? The second W that you need to know about any visual is why. Why? Why is it the way it is? First, you say what it is, then you say, why is it that way? And finally, the third W, so what? What's the consequence of it? If you can do those 3 W's about a visual, you're going to do wonderfully on the exam. Okay. Your exam will be on computer this year. But you can mark things out. You can make notations. This is wrong. This is right. And so make sure you mark up, underline, highlight, annotate, eliminate wrong answers throughout the exam. This is a skills test, number 8. Yes, there's content. You have to know about the foundations of American democracy. You have to know about the branches of government. You have to know about civil liberties and civil rights. But you also have to understand them. So you can't cram for the exam. There's a famous online cram for the exam, and it's too late to cram on the night before the exam. You need to start now understanding the concepts. The more you understand, the better you'll do. You can't memorize your way to an A. And finally, on any multiple choice question, never say never. If there is an answer that says always, never, only, that's not the answer. All right. These are the types of multiple choice questions and the number of them. Again, if you need more help, there's the exam online exam prep. And if you need more help with the comparison tables, we just went over the comparison table workshop. And if you want to go over it again on your own time, this is what it looks like. This is a comparison table workshop. This is also in today's agenda. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, those are some GoPro pro tips. These are all on the agenda. These aren't going anywhere. Feel free to take them. Feel free to share them with your classmates, or at least the ones you like. You could make up your own bad, not true pro tips and share them with the students you don't like in your class. No, don't do that. And now I want to give you some more AP GoPro exam review ideas. Now, when this session is over and you all have to go, you may have questions. You all have gotten an email from me. And if you just simply reply to that email with your question, I will reply to that email with an answer. Okay. Then probably somebody's going to be like, oh, where'd that comparison table go? Mr. Milner, email me and I'll send you the answer. Okay. Here's some things you could do between now and exam day. The multiple choice pro tips. We just did that. That will give you all the rules and all the help that you need to get 55 questions right on the multiple choice test. Oh my goodness, oh my gracious, there's a multiple choice diagnostic test, which you can take by clicking on this form. And if you're sort of like, I don't know, am I prepared? Am I not prepared? I don't know. There's a 20 question sample exam. Set a timer for 30 minutes and go through and answer the questions. Each of the question has a question and 4 possible answers. You need to find the best answer. Here's a visual question. Here's another visual question. And this practice exam is meant to mimic the style and the pace of the actual AP exam. When you're done, and there's a text, like I told you, there'll be 2 of these text-based questions on the AP exam. When you're done with this, submit your score and it will tell you how you did, and it will translate that into an AP exam range. Now, it can't tell you exactly how you're going to score on the AP exam because it doesn't know what's going to happen between now and the exam, but it can give you a range, but it will only give you a range on the multiple choice test. Also, half of the exam score comes from free response, and it is not going to be able to diagnose your free response. But if you want to do some tutoring with me, we can work on free responses individually. Again, there's our comparative table challenge that we went over. That is the paper version of it. And there's actually even a video of me telling you how to do the comparison table questions. You might share it with your teacher or some of your classmates. The 4 FRQs are half of your AP exam. Here is a workshop to practice FRQ number 3. I would suggest that you take this workshop and go through it. It'll take about half an hour and it'll give you all the tools you need to do well on FRQ number 3. In about 2 weeks, I'm going to make my annual prediction of what FRQ number 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be about. All right. And so stay tuned. I'll send out an email letting you know what I think FRQ number 3, 4, 2, and 1 will be on this year's exam. All right. As you go through this list of some good exam review ideas, there are flashcards, there's our glossary, there's our GoPo vocab list. This would be a really good thing for you to hold on to. Again, it's right here. And all you have to do is open it up. There's a bunch of games on the AP Exam Prep. As I told you, just go on over there and check out some of the things. And finally, we have a checklist of exam prep. Before exam happens, just go down this checklist and say to yourself, can I do that? Do I know what the required documents are? Check. Do I know what the 14 Supreme Court cases are? Check. And just go through this checklist, and when you can do it, check it off. If you can't do it, practice it, and there'll be some practice right here for you. All right. So hopefully this exam checklist will be of some help for you as you prepare for the AP exam. May 5th, 27 days from now. Don't forget to get some sleep. There are, as you know, 9 required documents. Here they are. I'm sure you know them. I'm sure your teacher has taught them to you. And there they are in all their glory. You need to know these 9. Well, what do you need to know? What you need to know is that each of these documents is an argument. Each of these documents makes an argument. The Declaration's argument is tyranny's bad. If you're living under a tyranny, overthrow it. Articles of Confederation makes an argument. A strong central government is bad. It leads to tyranny. Let's try a confederation. Did it work? Do we still follow the Articles of Confederation? Yeah. So anyway, these are the documents and these are the arguments they're about. And then I've got some graphic organizers for you that you can use to fill in about each of these 9 different foundational documents. And there, for example, is a completed rubric for the Declaration of Independence. And it looks like that. This would be a good thing to study over before exam day. Of all the documents, the Declaration is very important, but it's not the most important. The most important of all is the Constitution. All right. Those are the 9 documents that you need to know. There's also 14 Supreme Court cases you need to know. And you're going to be asked questions about these on the multiple choice section of the exam. And you're going to be asked to compare one of these cases to another case on FRQ number 3. Just like with the documents, I've got a sheet here where you connect the cases and the Constitution. For example, Marbury is about judicial review. McCulloch is about the necessary and proper clause. Schenck versus U.S. is about free speech. What are the other cases here about? And all you got to do is pick from the drop down and try to figure out which of these is the constitutional connection for each of these different cases. Okay? If you know the constitutional connection and a couple of facts about each case, you will be great on the AP exam. There's a rubric that you can complete for each of the cases. And if you can simply fill in the name, the date, the issue, the facts, the decision, and the impact of the case, you're going to do great. Here's an example of that for Gideon versus Wainwright. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I've gone over a whole lot of stuff. Let's pause for a second. Let me ask you to return to the exam webinar agenda. What questions do you guys have? You can either turn off the mute and speak into the mic, or you can put it in the chat. Any questions?
I had one question. It
Yeah.
was about your website. I know I asked earlier, you said it was like $15, but
Yeah.
how do we pay for that?
You just
Is it
use a
like
credit card.
online?
Yeah, that's a great question. And here we have the agenda, right? And if you see where I'm highlighting, the AP exam prep is 25% off for you guys until Friday.
Okay. Okay.
And there's a
Thank
discount,
you.
Roger Power.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And of course, your parents will pay for that for you, I'm sure, I hope. And it will definitely help you on the AP exam. Tell your friends about it and or share your exam prep with them. That was a great question, Shraddha. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have a question? If you do, you can put in the chat. If you do, you can say it out loud.
I think some people have put their questions in the chat.
Oh my gosh, you were such a good person. Thank you for telling me that. And I
Of course,
now
yeah.
we're not showing up. Thank you so much. Let's see what the chat has to say to us. Um, Thank you so much. There it is. All right. Here's the question. What part of the test do students tend to do worse on? FRQ number 4 is the answer every time. That is the hardest part. And if I were you, I would use some of your time to practice the argument essay. That is FRQ number 4. So that would be the place to start. That's the hardest part of the whole test. Here's another question. Somebody said, could you go over the FRQs a little bit more? And someone else said, yes, please. Let's do that. So let's practice FRQ number 3. There's 4 FRQs. And like I said, this is the hardest part of the exam for most people. And so it would be a good idea to practice them. Now, I'm going to walk you through FRQ number 3 right now. But if you want, on your own, you can do this whole workshop that I'm about to do by yourself on this page right here. There are 4 FRQs, and we're going to look at number 3, SCOTUS comparison question. It's 20 minutes and 4 points. And this is what it looks like. And I'll just, because we're running out of time, I'm going to just go right to a question that you can look at. And feel free to follow along on the screen. Here it is. Oh my goodness. This is the one I'd like to talk about. This is on FRQ number 3. FRQ number 3 is going to ask you to compare a case that you know, one of the 14, to a case you don't know. And they're going to give you a case you've never heard of. In this case, the case is Hernandez v. Texas. I've never taught it. Your teachers probably never taught it. Nobody knows much about it. It doesn't matter. The College Board's going to tell you everything you need to know right here. They're going to tell you the deets about the case. All right. And it's all written out here for you in about 2 little paragraphs. Basically, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to read about this case. And you're going to see if you can understand, what is it? What is this case about? You don't have to know anything about it, because the College Board's going to give you all the information you need right here. The thing you need to know about in this case is Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. That information has to be in your brain. And you are going to use that information in your brain and compare it to Hernandez v. Texas. Part A, identify the clause in the 14th Amendment that was used as the basis for the decision in both Brown versus Board and Hernandez. Now, anybody, feel free to unmute or to put it in the chat. What is the clause of the 14th Amendment that was the basis of the Brown case? Anybody know? Anybody? Don't be shy. Just unmute yourself. Don't be shy. Put it in the chat. There's 2 possible answers here, right? There's 2 big parts of, and we have an answer, equal protection. That is exactly right. The 2 parts of the 14th Amendment are the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause. And in fact, it was the Equal Protection Clause that is the basis of this. Pretty easy to write. To answer part A, all you're going to do is start with the second word in the question and write out the clause in the 14th Amendment that was used as the basis for the decision in both Brown versus Board of Education and Hernandez versus Texas was the Equal Protection Clause. Ta-da! And you just got a point. That is not hard. And I know you guys could do that. In part B, you're going to have to explain how Brown and Hernandez were similar by naming facts in both cases. In other words, you need to know some facts about Brown, and then you need to be able to say how those facts are similar to the case of Hernandez v. Texas. In this case, Brown versus Board was about segregation in education. It was about schools. It was about unfair education. And if you can state in Part B that Brown versus Board was about discrimination in education, and Hernandez v. Texas was about discrimination in, and you would get this by reading, discrimination in the judicial system. Ding, ding, there's 2 points. So without writing a whole lot, you're going to have 1 point for knowing the Equal Protection Clause, 2 points for knowing that Brown versus Board was about discrimination in education and comparing that to Hernandez v. Texas, which was about discrimination in the judicial system. And finally, part C explain how an interest group could use the decision in Hernandez v. Texas to advance its agenda. And the simple answer is it could file suit to make the case that Hernandez v. Texas applies to other areas in America, not just the judicial system, but also in housing or education or in the workplace. All right, that was really fast. I went over a lot of stuff, and it's all right here for you in this FRQ number 3 practice workshop. This was a question that we just looked at. On the next page are the scoring guidelines or the answer. And then look at this. There's even some sample questions, and you can look at student answers and you can try to score them on your own and tell me if they got 1, 2, 3, or 4 points. And then finally, there's the answer. It tells you how many points they should have received. All right. It is 6 o'clock and we're out of time. I'm going to leave the meeting, but if you guys have any last questions, I'll stick around just for a minute. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your commitment to doing well on the exam. And if you have any questions, just unmute, let me know, or put it in the chat and I'll try to answer it. Otherwise, best of luck on the AP exam. Thank you for being here.